All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to another segment here during Board&Dice Con. And we have some very, very special guests. Mik and Starla from our Family Plays Games. How are you guys?
How you doing?
Hi.
Oh, we gotta do our thing. Hold up.
Well, for those of you who don't know us, I'm Starla.
I'm Mik.
And we are
our Family Plays Games. Yeah. Whoa, blow up.
That's right. I love that you guys do that. So how are things?
Going good.
Going really well.
Good. Cold. We cold.
We're freezing.
We're freezing in the Midwest.
Yes.
We are freezing. Mm-hmm. But it's okay. It's okay. Next week we're gonna have nothing but got a bunch of snow, and we still freezing.
It's gonna be a lot of snow. They've been promising snow.
It's gonna be snow this time because we're gonna get snow.
We'll see.
Know it.
We'll see.
You know it.
But it is cold.
It is cold.
Yeah. It's been refreshing, I guess is a way to put it. The mornings have been chilly and such. Otherwise, it's been kind of nice. But here, so I live in Utah, and sometimes we have where we have all seasons in one day. So it might be that we have snow in the morning, and then it's 60 degrees a couple hours later, and
yeah. We're not getting that. It's gonna either be snow, or it's gonna be cold or hot. Either one, either one. Right. That's all we get.
And humid in the summer.
Not here. Not too humid. No, not too humid.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited to have you on live today. So we talked about this during in the morning about some of the events that we were going to do, and this one as well as one that we are having tomorrow with some other guests. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about representation in board games, and today
very important.
And today we're talking about diversity and inclusion. I mean, they're two very related but yet different topics. We're going to be talking about OFPG voices. And we're going to be talking about the Board&Dice Ally program, and in general, just have a good chat about important stuff. And it's we have some positive greetings as well from people. We have Amanda Panda that is saying hi.
Amanda! Yeah.
He says that you guys are two of the most amazing people in board gaming, and I have to agree.
She is amazing too.
Yes.
She is amazing. Amanda, you're amazing too.
Yes, you are, Amanda.
So I think, I do weekly streams, and I've talked about some of these topics before. Of course, we've had you guys on for last Board&Dice Con last year. You did a segment there as well, and of course we have talked with each other about these topics as well. But just in case there are people who don't watch you, I don't know why they wouldn't. But they don't watch you. Will you just tell everyone who you are, what you do, and why you care so much about it?
Okay.
Go ahead, Starla.
We've introduced ourselves. Again, I'm Starla, and this is Mik. Also, our son Grant works with our channel with us. He's our editor and director and videographer. And
the
all
wizard.
That stuff.
The wizard.
He does good work.
We are just, we're just an African-American family who would love to see more people of color in the hobby. When we started in this hobby almost a decade ago, we just didn't see a lot of people of color, and we would go to conventions and different meetups and be the only people of color, whether it's Black, Hispanic, Asian, or whatever, in this entire event. And it's like, wait a minute, people should know about this hobby. We can't be the only people.
No.
And this is when we were living in Houston, in the fourth largest city in the U.S., who play board games. So we decided to start our Family Plays Games on social media, and wanted to reach out to families and say, hey, these board games are out here. We play them. If you like to play board games, we tell people what different events were coming out and the games we like to play. And it just grew from there. In order to reach more people, we decided to go on YouTube.
No, you decided. Now we need to go on YouTube. You decided.
Well, in order to reach more people, I said, you know what, we got to elevate our game. Let's go on YouTube so people can not only see our posts, but actually see us and hear what we have to say about the hobby. And as they say, the rest is history. We started in 2020. By the middle of 2020, Good Morning America had picked up on the message that we had about seeing more people of color, African Americans, and families in the board game hobby. And we've been going since then, just growing and growing. And we see change, we see progression, and that's what our whole mission is. And we see it. And that makes us very happy that we see it.
We see tiny changes. They're tiny, but there's
but
changes.
There are changes.
There's
changes. It's positive and it's inclusive and it's bringing more people to the table. And that's exactly what we wanted. And we're just so happy that we're able to help facilitate.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
And one thing that I think is so wonderful by you guys is that you're just good advocates for board gaming in general, right? You're happy, you're positive. You're looking for those nuggets of positivity, like you're saying. I know from conversations that we've had just in private between us, I know how much you care about furthering the diversity and inclusion in the hobby, and I know how badly that's needed. Yet you're looking at it from the perspective of the fact that it's the little improvements, the little changes that matter, and you're excited about it. And I think that's so wonderful that you always put such a positive spin on things. You're always looking for the good things, and making sure that people also see those things and can be happy about it.
Exactly.
And I think that's why your message speaks to a lot of people, not just to people of color, but to everyone. Here where I live, and most of the people in my gaming group, their majority of them are white. We have a few people of color, but the majority of them are still white. But people generally, they just speak so positively about you because of who you are and what you do, and just good representatives for the hobby in general, right? And that's one of the things that drew me towards watching your content. Then the fact that you talk about important topics, but you do so in a way that is inviting. You do so in a positive way, and that makes a big difference. I think that's why people want to listen.
Well, the one big thing about it is that we're board gamers and we love this hobby.
We do.
So if we didn't care about the hobby, we wouldn't care, but we don't want to burn it down. We want to build it up.
Yes.
Right.
So that's why we love the hobby. We love board gaming. We love doing what, putting down, a board game on the table, like a Board&Dice game for sure, and put it on the table and play it and have some fun. And we want to see it improve, not go away or not be destroyed. We want to see it improve and be better for everybody.
Yeah.
So we got to talk positive because, we want to see it grow.
Yeah, well, I grew up with a mom who had a lot of little common sense phrases. And one of the things she taught me was you get more flies with honey than with vinegar. So if we want to bring more people in, you can't come here with vinegar and being disruptive and all that. You need to talk to people from a common sense level and let them come around to the realization. And that's what people are doing. A lot of people, they really appreciate, that we want this diversity because they wanted it themselves. They just didn't know how to get it or how to approach it. And so that's what we're doing, helping people approach something that was seemingly unapproachable. But it's just the way you do it. And it's another thing I learned. It's not so much what you say, but how you say it. And we're not trying to beat people over the head with it, but we just want people to recognize that it is an important thing to have, and that more people and diverse voices, they bring so much to the table, especially the board game table and just to life in general.
Yeah.
I think it's and first of all, I absolutely agree with you. The thing that I find sad is that occasionally the people who I'm not going to say that people are against it, because I don't think people are in general against diversity, right? But most people think that when they say that you're advocating for diversity, they see it as a threat rather than seeing it as you wanting to add and grow and improve the hobby, right? They see it as a threat that will somehow take away their enjoyment, or that it's which this is not at all about, right? None of this is about taking away any enjoyment from anyone. This is just about making sure that more people will enjoy the hobby, and that everyone, regardless of race, gender identity, regardless of where in the world they live, regardless of their religious affiliation and beliefs or not, that everyone can feel that this is a hobby that they feel welcome in.
Exactly.
And the one thing is that we've always said is that we want everybody to be at the table. I mean, that's just like you said, everybody needs to be at the table, because it can only get better with everybody there. Yeah. Putting, having that bias. And I'm not saying it's racism all the time, which is not. It's really bias. You're like, well, will those people really like my game if I sell it to them? Well, are those people really going to come in here? Don't do that. Everybody wants to play. Everybody play games.
Every culture.
Everybody play games.
Culture.
So I can't sit there and say, well, I don't think that those type of folk gonna come. I don't know. You might want to play games, so come on in and leave that bias at the door.
Yes.
Because I think it's more bias now than anything. It's bias. So leave the bias, check that bias at the door, and just have some fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have some fun.
Yeah, and I think, because when I look at, if I'm just looking at myself, right, I know that there are games that are widely liked that I don't personally care for. I also know that there are games that are probably objectively bad. That's, for some reason, they are my my little hidden gem that for whatever reason I like this game that I know that most people don't like.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing when it comes to like any person who's interested in games, right? It's not about the color of your skin. It's not about how you identify. It's about finding things that you enjoy and finding a common ground where we can enjoy those things together.
Yeah.
Because there are games that we both like, and we can get together and talk about those things. But we can also talk about games that we disagree on. And it's not that the disagreement is a problem. It's the problem is if people don't have a voice at the table. We don't care.
Yes.
I don't care what games you like and don't like. I just care about the fact that we both like games and we can both be passionate about it, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's where you can have the diversity, but if you don't have the inclusion involved in that, like putting people at the table and listening to them, then diversity is really just that's just a show.
Yeah.
That's a show.
Right.
Just having a person of color face on the front of a box and stuff like that. That's window dressing. But if you have us at the table talking about things, that's where things get good. That's where things get good.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, for a while there were a lot of tokens in games, right? There would be the token female character, the token person of color, a lot of things, and I'm not going to say, at least from my perspective, and you may disagree with me, I'm not going to say that those tokens are by themselves bad, but that cannot be the end, right? If that's how someone starts, if they feel like, well, I need to put something in there or whatever, great. However you get started, but then don't stop.
Don't
continue,
stop.
Continue on that and make it part of what you do, right? Make it part of how you approach publishing or designing or whatever. And yeah. By the way, I just want to mention, so Amanda was saying that seeing and hearing more diverse voices can only make things better, and I absolutely agree with that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And Chris was saying he had a chance to talk to you guys at PAX Unplugged, and he said that was a wonderful opportunity to connect with you. So. Yes.
Hey, Chris. But the one thing, and what Amanda said, that's the reason. We created OFPG not me. Starla created OFPG Voices is because we wanted to get those voices that are not really heard in the community, in this board game community. We want them to be seen and heard. that we do a lot of stuff, and we want you to see the things that we do.
And then that's sometimes just having that visual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some places people can go and say, oh, okay, this group of people, they do like board games. Oh, okay, this person is Asian, or this person is Hispanic, or this person is Black American, or this person is a woman, or this is LGBT. We can see all of these different people like board games. And okay, so now when they show up at your con or at your board gaming event, you can feel comfortable and say, you know what, I've seen these kind of people, playing games. I saw it on YouTube. I know they like games. Instead of this dismissive attitude when you see somebody, of color walk into a con, and
Say,
it's
why
almost
they
like
here?
you get this look of, why are they here? And it's very disheartening when you get that. So we want people to be able to see and hear a variety of voices and of people from different walks of life, so that they can be more accepting and more welcoming when they're presented with people of that different walks of life in person.
Because because we've seen the stories on social media and stuff, how people from the queer community are talked about and shunned, and women are treated in board game stores, and we hear all the bad stories. Even people of color having issues, and we that's why OFPG came into being, and then that's when Starla said we're gonna take one step further and just not just talk the talk, but we're gonna walk the walk and bring in OFPG voices. So we want you to see what we're all about out there.
And I think that's so great that when you talk about diversity and when you talk about inclusion, you don't stop at people of color, for example.
No.
And I think, unfortunately, I think some people misunderstand that, right? They think that, oh, okay, just because you are people of color yourselves, well, that means that that's your prime. But you just want everyone, regardless of color, everyone to feel invited and welcomed, and that this is a hobby that should be open for everyone, and that everyone should have an equal opportunity. And I think it's important to emphasize that, because again, unfortunately, people who show some restraint towards it, it's often because they misunderstand it. They think that this is somehow a mission to because there's a lot of talk about older games where there were mistakes that were made in the theme or whatever, but it's not about taking away things. It's about adding things to the hobby, adding things and new ways of enjoying it, and in many cases, games from the past that have been problematic, revisiting them and making sure that they are presented in a way that is respectful towards different cultures as well.
And many of them are doing that. Puerto Rico's being looked at again. And Maracaibo that we've had by Alexander Pfister, he added in an expansion to show the uprising of people of color in the Caribbean. I mean, you got to revisit, look at it again, and say, okay, we need to do this. Tell the whole story, not just a little bit. Just to tell a whole story.
And the same thing with World's Fair.
Yeah, World's Fair.
World's Fair, the first printing, they left African Americans out of it, even though African Americans were at the World's Fair. So after we brought it to their attention, when they did the reprinting of it was an expansion. It was a reprint.
It was a reprint.
The reprint. They added people who were already there, and so we always try to let people know we're not asking for anything extra. What we're asking is not to be left out.
Yeah, don't forget us.
Yeah, don't forget. We were there. We were at the World's Fair. We were in these situations, with Maracaibo and the uprising. These people are already there, but you chose to leave them out. So now you're only telling part of the story, and you're leaving out the other part. So that's what we're trying to do. Don't tell part, tell the whole story.
Yeah, because you missed. It's a shame that Frederick Douglass, the man, he was at the World's Fair. So how'd you miss him?
Right?
1893.
1893. So so he was there, and they missed him. Ida B. Wells.
Ida B. Wells.
So a lot of notable Black Americans were at this particular World's Fair, totally left out.
Yes.
And there's just no reason for that. You can Google it. I keep saying to people, Google it.
Google.
You don't even have to leave your house. Yeah. You can get on your phone and pull up. So sometimes it's just overlooking, and like my husband said, it's bias. And we want to work on those things.
You got to work on that bias. Really do.
And I think often it's also it's not always, in fact, I'd be willing to guess that most often it's not done by malice. It's just it's
No, it's bias.
ignorance. It's
Yeah.
just the unconscious bias, and people
Mm-hmm.
they don't recognize it until it gets pointed out, right?
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
And that's why, I mean, and the chat is saying the same thing, that it's important to tell the whole story, because it's not just a game. This is about something, right? There's a reason why we have themes in games. There's a reason why, for example, we love games about historical things and about different cultures and so forth. But there is a responsibility that comes with that. If your game is about something, well, then it's not just a game. It's also a theme. It's also telling a story, and you need to tell that story in a respectful and in a complete manner.
Yeah, if you're doing a game with a historical context and you decide to only tell half of the history, then you're doing an injustice.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do that type of game, then you have to research all of the history. Now, if you're just doing a game about, downforce, which is racing cars, that's totally different.
Yeah.
You can make the characters anything you want to be. It's your story. You tell it the way you want to. But particularly history stories,
and especially
you cannot leave out. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when it's
And-
people, right?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, especially history when it's about people, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're telling the history of, I don't know, the Industrial Revolution. I don't care if you're simplifying the technical aspects about that, because it doesn't deal with people. But anytime that you talk about history in a way that involves people, then you owe it to the people that whose history you're trying to represent in the game. You owe it to them to make it complete and fair and honest.
And it's one thing that I'm seeing that I'm kind of scared of, is that a lot of designers, to avoid the issue of, race or situations that involve, history that was not that great, they make the characters animals. Like, okay, I'm gonna make all these characters animals in the time of that history. Now, don't resort to animals so you don't have to avoid the situation. Just tell the story and just tell it right. So that's what I want to see. Don't try to go to animals. Not everybody animals. We don't want to see all that. So.
Yeah. There was a question here from the chat. Why do you think that publishers leave out people of color in their games when they should be part of the game?
Well, it's just like we just said, and you said, it's ignorance for one, and I actually think it's, to be honest, it's just lazy. Because if you can Google it from your phone, then there's no excuse for leaving people out. None. So it's just lazy. It's biased. It's, I'm going to tell the story from my perspective, which happens to be, the perspective that I'm around, the people I'm around. But you can't leave other people out. Because if we did that, people of color did a game, and we left all the other people out, people are like, well, how did you leave this person? How did you, you got to include everybody.
Yeah, you have to include everybody.
It's an ignorance, and not an ignorance that these people are unintelligent. It's just a lack of care and concern for other cultures sometimes, that you just don't have that because you didn't grow up with that, or you didn't learn that. And that's something we got to work on, and we got to care about all the cultures that we're surrounded by.
And it's frightening that it seemed like, especially in this country, we don't want to walk in anybody else's shoes.
Which is weird, because America is supposed to be, quote unquote, the melting pot.
Yeah, but
and
we don't want to walk in there. I don't want to walk in their shoes. I don't care what they did. I don't care what they have a problem about. I'm not gonna walk in their shoes. But like my wife always says, she tells me all the time, Mik, walk in their shoes. See what they have, what problem they might have.
Where they are.
Yeah, meet people where they are. So I'm like, come on, America, we can do better. We can do better.
We can.
I think you used the right word though, Starlight, when you said that it's laziness, because I think
lazy.
I don't think it's just ignorance. To a certain extent, yes, the bias and not thinking about it, but it's, I mean, no publisher would, well, I shouldn't say no, that there are some publishers that would, but for the most part, no publisher would put out a game without having put a lot of time and effort and money into the artwork of the game, for example.
Yes.
Right.
Everyone invests because they know it's so important that you have to have artwork. And for some reason, the accuracy of the theme and the historical time and that time period is not given the same attention. And that's lazy.
That's lazy.
That's trying to cut corners in a way that I feel is as damaging as not doing the right artwork.
That's true.
If you're willing to invest money into artwork, you should be willing to invest money into doing the theme justice, right? Or otherwise pick a different theme.
Exactly.
Or just Google it. I mean, just like Starla saying, it don't cost that much money to Google it and say, oh, okay, they were in that time period. Or, oh, I need to put this culture, do this culture right. I mean, it's not hard. It's not hard.
Right.
No.
Here's another interesting question from the chat, and I want to come back to one part of it when it comes to some of the games that we make. But Nagmar is saying when we talk about his games with historical theme, and when we're talking about then fantasy theme games, because that's another thing that happens that often. Either they make animals instead of people to avoid race and culture, or they do fantasy, and especially generic fantasy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts, it goes to what's going on right now with Lords of the Rings new series coming out called Power. I think the Rings of Power. In the Rings of Power, they're going to have people of color. They're going to have a black, queen of the dwarves, and also a black elf, not a dark elf, but a person of color elf. People are going crazy. I mean, you got the trolls out there saying, "Oh no, that's not right." J.R.R. Tolkien didn't want all that. How you know? How you know what he wanted?
And it's fantasy.
It's fantasy. It could be a black elf. It could be a Hispanic elf. Who cares?
I mean, when it's fantasy,
Come
why
on.
can't you be inclusive of others in a fantasy?
Why
does a fantasy have to be one culture, one race? It's a fantasy.
It's a fantasy.
Right.
It's purple.
Yep, and it's the same thing, whether it's dealing with alien cultures.
Yeah,
they all look the same. It's a generic alien look, and if they're remotely humanoid looking, most of the time they're generic white people, right?
Yeah,
and there's no reason for it.
No.
And like you said, if it's fantasy, well then don't get stuck in just drawing the same old stuff that we've seen. Be creative with it. You want your game and your art to stand out, and if you have the realm of fantasy where anything goes, and now you're starting to talk about, oh no, that's not how elves look like. They're not real.
They're not real. But the one series that have always bucked the system and put everybody in there is Starla's favorite IP, and that's Star Trek. Star Trek, they'll put everybody and anybody, to be anything. Yeah. And Gene Roddenberry, that's what he wanted. That's all he wanted.
And so it goes back to this whole thing of lazy and biased, because I don't know of anybody in this day and time who grew up through the 90s and the 80s who have not seen other cultures and people of color. Television does that. Movies does that. I don't care what country, whether it's America, New Zealand, Poland, you've seen other people of color. So you know this world is not just one, homogenous race. It's a variety. So you're making a choice at this point.
Yeah.
You're making a choice.
And that's what it is. It's choices being made. Because you can't say, oh, no, I don't know nothing about that. I don't know. No, you making a choice at this point.
Yeah,
it's
you're making a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting that that's a choice that is still being made when you look at everything else. You look at food as a good example, or music. Everyone loves embracing the food and the music of other cultures.
Yes.
We listen to music from other cultures, from other countries. We eat food from other countries, and we love it. We love the variety. We love being able to go to an authentic restaurant. People always talk about this. Oh, this is an authentic, whether it's Italian or Indian or Mexican or whatever. Oh, this is an authentic place. People love that. And for some reason, the moment that you get into board games, oh, no, we can't, we don't want to deal with it. And it makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
None. Not at all.
No sense. And that's why we keep driving home, the notion that we can do better.
Yes.
That's why we are here. That's why we keep marching. That's why we keep fighting, saying, hey, we can do better.
Yes.
We can do better.
And if we don't say something, then people will continue to stay on the same status quo. So somebody has to say something to make things change, to facilitate that change.
And then also show that, with OFPG Voices, show that. So, hey, we can teach games. We can review games. We can
review.
We can talk. We have fun with games.
And we enjoy.
Games.
That's important.
Yes.
Yes. Someone in chat was also saying that sometimes it's people don't want to take the extra step when it's something they're unfamiliar with, right? And that makes sense to a certain extent. It's a new territory. It's easier to ignore it. One thing that people would tell us for a long time was that, well, why don't you just make games that don't deal with history or other cultures? Well, because we like that theme. We like those. We like the history. We like talking about the rich variety of other cultures and so forth. Now, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, right? Because if you're working with another culture, then you need to take the proper steps to consult with someone of that culture. You need to first do your research. You need to find people that are members of that culture, consult with them, and make sure that things are done in a respectful way. And I'm not saying that we are perfect at it, right? We've made our mistakes. There have certainly been shortcomings, and there have been ups and downs of things. The point of view from our perspective is that we're trying to improve in everything that we do.
You are.
We're trying to. Just next game, we're going to do it better. Next game, it's interesting. So one of the games that is coming out later this year is Terracotta Army, which of course is set in China. And we've been consulting for a long time now with people in China. It was difficult to find the right people to consult with. We talked to different universities that work closely with people in China, and especially when it comes to the historical studies, asking them for recommendations. We wrote to both the Chinese embassy in the United States, the Chinese embassy in Poland. We reached out to the Ministry of Culture. I can't remember what it's called now, but the equivalent of that in China to ask for recommendations. Who do they think that we should work with? Like, what are some good people to work with on this theme? The language barrier is of course a challenge in that regard, but we were able to work through with our partner Simon Asia, who's basically a localization partner for China and that region. And in the end, does it take time? Yes, it does. Is it a lot of back and forth? Yes, it is. But in the end, it's so nice to be able to say, okay, here we have a game about Terracotta Army, which is not some obscure thing. Everyone in the world has heard of the Terracotta Army. We could have been lazy.
All the documentaries, yes.
Yeah, we could have been lazy and just found sources somewhere and read up on it, and it would have been close enough, right? But we wanted to make sure that we talked to people in China, people who know this and who are experts at this. And one thing that is nice, people have commented, so on the cover, there is the word Terracotta Army is written in Chinese, but it's written in simplified Chinese rather than traditional Chinese, which was used at the time when the Terracotta Army was built. And people are saying, well, why did you go with traditional Chinese over simplified? Well, because that's what our consultants asked us to do. Because today in China, they use simplified Chinese. To them, it's not important that back then they used traditional Chinese. To them, it's important that today they would use the simplified Chinese. So that's what we put on the cover. And it's nice to say, well, this is not a decision that we made, because to us, it doesn't matter. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's not important to us whether it's one version of Chinese or the other, but it matters to them, and they were able to make that decision. And great, we know that this has been approved by them.
Yeah.
And I fail to see how any of this would be. I mean, translate this to any other game that deals with another culture or history. I fail to see how any of this is negative, aside from the fact that it does take extra work, it does take extra money and time, but the end product is just so much better from it. I don't understand what the pushback is really from other publishers or designers that deal with similar themes.
And I think it goes back to that implied bias. It goes back to that, and because I just say wrong, implicit bias. Because the one thing that you guys did, that's what I mean. What's so hard for that? To go back and really research and get into it and do it. I mean, that's what we want. That's what people of color want you guys to do. So you can bring out a really cool game that is so thematic that hey, that's for real.
And, and respectful.
Yes,
of the
and
culture,
respectful.
So you can take pride in it.
Yes, respectful. So that's what we want. And if publishers don't want to do that, that's not right. It's not right. It's not right.
Pick another thing.
Yeah, pick another thing.
Yeah, if it's too expensive or too much trouble, find another thing.
Find something else. You know,
don't put out something to make it easy for you and then you insult a whole group of people.
Yes.
Pick another thing. Do something fantasy.
Do something fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do something like,
again,
won't bother nobody.
It's a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
The publisher and designers are making. I want to do something because I like, the terracotta army. So if I'm going to do that, then I need to respect it and respect the culture. Otherwise, do something else.
Do something else.
You're making this choice.
Yeah.
One thing that was really neat in this process was when the army figures, the actual terracotta warriors, when they were drawn on the cover. So we work very closely with a Polish artist because we've worked with him for a long time, and we have a good communication and so forth. And so he was drawing that cover, but then we took his drawings, which were based on the actual terracotta warriors. But then we sent it to the consultants and we said, okay, we want to make sure that they have Asian features, because to us it would have looked good.
Yeah.
But we said, okay, well, we need your feedback. And they're like, well, no, this person here, they still have too Western, and look at the shape of their jaw or their chin, whatever it was, right? And then they pointed us to reference images. We took that back to the artist. He would redraw, and we took it back to them, and they gave us feedback. And then we have now something that they are proud of. They're really happy with it.
When you look at that cover, it looks like the documentaries that we see on PBS, public broadcasting stations, service of stations. Yeah, right. So, but when you look at that cover, you're like, okay, it looked like it just jumped off the page of a, museum, museum cover or something like that. So it was really cool. It was a really good cover. Really nice cover.
Which is what we want.
Can't wait to play that game too. You haven't heard of it yet. No, you haven't heard of it. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
It's coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Matthew McCack is saying hi in the chat.
Matthew, what's up?
Hey.
Matthew's also saying that it amazes me that publishers want to get games as close to a theme as possible, except when it comes to these topics, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Everything else.
Yeah, that scares them. It scares them, or they're uncomfortable with it. That's just like with publishers uncomfortable with going into communities to advertise their games. Should we go into the Hispanic community? Should we go into the Black community? I'm kind of scared of that because I really don't know if they'll like my game or not. But plus, they don't buy it anyway. So there we go. So yeah, they kind of pull out when they get scared. Like, oh, I don't know. So that's not cool. That is not cool.
No. At the same time, though, you deal with that in any community. I mean, I know for a fact that no matter how excited a subset of our hobby is for the next game that we put out, there's way more people that have never heard of us, that will never play these games, and these games are just not for them. I mean, you have that no matter what. This is not about saying that, well, I don't know how these people, as if people of color or people of LGBTQ plus that somehow they like different games. No, I mean it's games. They're gamers.
It's games.
It's games. It's games.
Yeah.
You know, they're all games. Now they hard games. Now Rainer, they hard, but we like that. We like it. We like it. But you know, I mean, it's just games that challenge your mind, and I mean, and then it also has a cool theme behind them that's done correctly.
Yeah.
You know, hey, that's all the better. That's all the better.
Yeah. And
'Cause I would tell you one thing that what's the one with Builders of Ur? What is that? Tabanusi?
Yeah.
The Tabanusi, did I get it right?
I think so.
I'm kind of scared of that one, but I want to try it though. I'm kind of scared, but I'm gonna try it though. I'm gonna
that
try
one
it.
is different because in most games, and especially the types of games that we make, it's so competitive, and you have to make sure that you're getting all the resources, actions, whatever it is, to be able to accomplish everything that you're trying to do.
You heard that, Starla?
Yeah, I hear
But
you.
You heard
now
that?
in
Yeah.
Tabanusi, the
Yes.
game is saying, you know what? It's actually to your benefit to set something up for your opponent, and then they repay the favor because that benefits both of you. And it adds a
You hear
twist
that,
to the
Starla?
game.
You hear that?
That'll be interesting.
That's gonna be good. That's gonna be good.
That'll be the day, huh?
No, that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be fun. Yes, we like those type of games. We like them.
But yeah, so the thing that I like about, and especially the conversation that we are having now, that I think is so wonderful, is that we have the same. We come from different backgrounds.
Yes, we do.
We represent completely different aspects of the hobby. We
Yes.
are different. Thank you for the cheer, by the way, Matthew. Thank you so much. We come from different backgrounds when it comes to. I mean, I was born in Sweden. I had come from a completely different background there. We live in different parts of the country. We have different things. What we studied, our education, and whatever. But we are still united with the same purpose here.
Yes.
This is not a conflict of interest where you want one thing and we want something else. No, we want the same thing. Why? Because if we have more people that are invited and included in the hobby, then we will sell more games.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And when we go to conventions, whether that is going there to exhibit and selling games, or going there and playing games, or just meeting up with people at a local meetup or whatever, if there are more people that feel invited and included, there will be more people to play with.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
I mean, it seems like this should be what everyone wants, and yet we struggle with it to the point where we have to make special efforts, right?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, yeah.
Yep, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. But that's why we keep, like I keep repeating, I'm repeating. That's what we're fighting for. That we need the diversity and inclusion to make it better. And we got to keep fighting for the inclusion, because some people stop at the diversity, like, oh, I'm gonna put somebody on the cover, or I'm gonna put some people, some more player characters in my game. But you got to go past that. You got to go way past that. And that's what we're trying to fight for, to go past.
And that's what I think is so wonderful with not just what you've done with OFPG in general, but especially with OFPG Voices, is to broadening that perspective in general, right?
Yes.
Of showing that you also have to be inclusive and diversify when it comes to the content on your channel, right?
Yes,
exactly. And that's what we wanted to show, that it's not just about, our particular views. We want people to see other people's views as well. We all have the same issue. Everyone who's on OFPG Voices at some point in time has experienced some type of negativity in the hobby. So that's why they can resonate with what we're trying to do, and they're so happy to be part of it. And we shouldn't have that.
No.
It shouldn't be this negativity that's being forced upon people just because they want to play and they want to enjoy something with a group of people. And that's what we have in common on the channel. And so they're able to express their love for the hobby from their perspective and some of the negative things they've experienced, and then also the positives that's come out of the hobby. And that's what we're able to show from different walks of life. And that's what we like showing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important point as well. As much of a struggle as it is, there are still positive things. You touched on that earlier as well, that there are changes happening. This is moving in the right direction. And I think it's, if nothing else, it's raising awareness, and that wall is slowly coming down. That resistance to the change is slowly coming down, because people realize that this is not a threat to what anyone's doing. It's just a matter of just keep doing what you do and do the things that you like, but just do it in a proper and respectful way.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly.
We got past that years ago, although it's still a struggle when it comes just to the difference between men and women, for example. But that's universally accepted, at least by the vast majority, that men and women should be treated equal. It's slowly getting beyond that point and growing, which is good, right? That everyone should be given that same respect.
Yeah. That is so true.
Yeah. So, when on OFPG Voices, I do a segment called Good Humans. And overall, that was the main reason, is to figure out how we can be good humans to each other and talk about those things that can help us become good humans. Because what we do at the board game table, when we go to the different conventions and different events or whatever, and you're meeting people and we're being welcoming, if you can be welcoming there, then you can take that outside of there and be welcoming on the outside. Because one of our other slogans is, our goal is to make this world a better place, one board gamer at a time. So we really want to do that. And that is a mission for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's so wonderful to, it's not just the fact that this is a noble thing to aspire to. It's the fact that you are putting your soul and your effort into making this happen, right? You're doing what you can to make a difference. You're not just saying, oh, well, publishers or other people do this. No, you do it yourselves.
Yes.
And I think that's what's important, right? Is that it's not just identifying what needs to be done, it's being willing to then accept the responsibility to do that yourself as well, which is what we're trying to do. We try to not just talk about how we acknowledge that improvements are needed, but we're trying to make sure that we do our part as well in just broadening our vision, being more inviting, and just like you said, Starla, I like that, being good humans, right?
Being good humans. That's it.
That's true. That is true. Because, it's really good that you have the ally program that you guys developed. And I know that we helped with that, but Starla helped with that. Starla, she should be doing a thing. But, it's good to have that ally program that you guys continue to try to help, move that needle to that diversity and inclusion. So I really, applaud, Board&Dice doing that. Yes. So it's really cool.
It's an awesome program. I love what it stands for. I love its goals. And I hope a lot of people will take advantage of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely.
Go to the website, y'all. Go check it out. Go to the website.
Yeah, and this was something that we had talked about it. We started talking about it. It's been in the works for a long time, and we've done other things around, because it needed to have a good foundation to stand on, right? There were other things that we felt that we needed to do internally, just to show that we actually mean what we say that we mean. We felt that we needed to just lay a good foundation for this, and in case people are not familiar with the Ally program, the purpose of the Ally program is, even though everyone is invited, because we don't want to exclude anyone, but we want to extend a special invitation to anyone who is a person of color, anyone who is LGBTQ+, anyone who is marginalized, anyone who has felt diminished in any way and in any connection to this hobby. It doesn't matter if you are a designer or an artist, or you want to get into publishing, or you want to review games, whatever it is that you want to do in this hobby, there's space for you, and we want to do what we can to help people find a comfortable space to do so.
Yeah.
We're not saying that we possess all the right answers, but what we do possess is an experience in board game publishing. We know what it takes to get quotes from a factory. We know what it takes to go through the development and testing process. We know what it takes to work with artists or with cultural consultants, and anyone who wants to hear what we have to say on those things, you can do so. And especially, which we also call out in our commitment towards this ally program and any of its members, we call on other publishers to join us in this effort, because that's what we need. We need more publishers, more people that actually have a voice in the industry, people that have a voice and a platform to use that for something good and to spread that benefit to others. That's all we want.
Yeah.
And just like you're saying, with you have your platform with your channel, and you're using that to expand the reach and to invite more people, because again, more voices need to be heard, and that's
and we got to throw out there is that we're so glad that Board&Dice is a sponsor of OFPG Voices.
Yes.
You know, a proud sponsor, and we're so glad and appreciate you guys are on with us to really support that mission, and we're just so happy about that.
Thank you. Yeah, and we're happy to do it as well, right? We believe that I mean, this is a mutually beneficial relationship. We want to sponsor something that we believe in, that is good for the hobby, and we also recognize that what you do is going to add so much value to what we're trying to do. You're trying to bring more people into the hobby, that will help us make the games that we want to make, that will help us sell the games that we want to sell, and it makes perfect sense for us to support and sponsor in that, and because it's a good cause, right? It's any cause that is a worthy cause is also worthy of supporting, and it makes sense for us. So
we want to thank you guys. We want to thank you. We definitely want to thank you.
And the other thing that we used to, and I'm still torn about and this is just me personally, right? We used to not talk too much about these topics in public, because we didn't want it to come off the wrong way because we feel that a lot of these things, working towards diversity, inclusion, representation in games, those are things that everyone should be doing.
Yes.
And we didn't want to try to say, oh, well, look what we're doing. We're doing this thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also started recognizing that if we don't talk about it, we are not encouraging other people to also follow in our paths, because it's easier to follow what someone else is doing than if you're feeling that if you feel that you're breaking new ground, that's much harder, even if you're not. But if you think that you're breaking new ground, then that's harder, which is why we say that we want other publishers to join in this, because we can get way more done together than any one of us can do by ourselves.
That's true. That is true.
I agree.
That we totally agree with that. Totally.
So let's talk about and there was a question or a comment earlier, just about, and we touched a little bit on that as well. What are some of the positive things that you see? Because there are positive changes. There are things that are happening and improving. What are some of those things that you recognize that there are improvements in this hobby?
Well, the fact that companies like yours are trying to push the needle by inviting more people of color to be more involved in the hobby, and not just your company, Brotherwise Games. They have a program they're working with. I can't name the other company we spoke with. We've been approached and talked to by so many different organizations and publishers about the efforts that they're making to make the hobby better. And this did not occur before we started because they all come to us to ask us questions. And I feel like that's a change that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
So we appreciate seeing that. The simple thing about getting, games, publishers to look at their designs and making sure that they're being inclusive and that they're telling the whole story and not just part of it. When Mik reached out, who's the publisher?
That was to Renegade.
Renegade about the World's Fair, and he was able to get them to take another look and actually got them to hire a historian who's an African American to help them with that reprinting. That's a change. That's a positive change that didn't happen before. So we see it, and we see more people of color in the hobby. We see more people of color coming to conventions. People that follow us and they come to the conventions. So we see the change, and we're so happy that it's working. What we wanted to have happen is happening, and it's just that we put the message out there. And like you said, we're talking to people from a common sense perspective, leveling with them and reasoning with them from an intelligent level and not trying to beat people down about it. And people are embracing that. And so we see the change.
Yes. And also one other thing is just seeing, more publishers going out to get those cultural consultants and see what they can do about these games. So we love seeing that too.
And these are changes that have happened since we started talking about it.
And they push back on, when they do that, for example, when Seth LaFair, brought in a consultant, a cultural consultant for Frosthaven, and they got heat, but they fought it right on back and said, this is something that we needed to do. So, we're glad to see that.
We see it.
Yes, we see it.
It really makes us happy.
Yes.
And one thing that I see, and this is especially, my comment here is especially directed to anyone who feels tempted to push back against this or fight against the change or whatever. I have not seen a single negative thing. I haven't seen a single drawback or anything that would in any way threaten what we do, the games we publish, our livelihood as a publisher, or anything that we want to do. None of that has been threatened or jeopardized or diminished by anything that we have done or that we have seen in the hobby that has tried to expand that reach or tried to work towards more inclusion, more representation. None of it has had any negative impact. Quite the opposite, right? We get less heat today from doing the right thing than we did a couple of years ago, because people are starting to accept it, and not that there shouldn't have been that pushback in the first place, right? But the fact that that's lessened, again, those walls are coming down. People are starting to recognize that we're not talking about taking away anything that is fun. Like we talked about World's Fair, for example. We talked about Puerto Rico. It's not about saying, well, you can't play those games anymore. It's about saying that if you're going to print those games again, then just make a small little change. And I don't mean to diminish the value of that change, right? But I'm saying if on the surface, it's not a change that impacts gameplay whatsoever.
No.
But it does so much to properly represent history and just dealing with problematic themes in a way that is respectful and that is inclusive and that just does it justice, right? So that everyone can sit down and play that game and feel that they're having a good time doing so. It's making the games more enjoyable and more accessible to more people.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes, that is true. Just do justice. Just do things, right. Just do what does Spike Lee say? Just do the right thing. Just do the right thing. That's all you gotta do. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah. There's a ton of love in the chat, by the way, for the things that we're talking about. We really appreciate the fact that people are so supportive of this, right? There's so many people in this hobby, and to all of you that are here in the chat and listening to this and expressing your love and support for the things that we're talking about. We really appreciate it, because this is these are things that we care about, and I think it's important to recognize that despite our different backgrounds and different
Mm-hmm.
reasons for doing this, we have the same purpose. We're working together towards a common goal that will
Yes.
benefit all of us, and
Yes.
it means a lot to see that support from both from people in the industry and in the hobby, but also in general, the fact that these are things that are being talked about and highlighted in a positive way. You look at, again, with Frosthaven, there have been so many different articles, and not just within board gaming,
Mm-hmm.
but outside of our industry, that has talked about this as an example of a challenge for a publisher that was not, of course, without its costs, and it required time and effort. And then you can say, well, what's the benefit? Because on paper, it doesn't look like there's a benefit. There's no immediate reward. There's no monetary benefit, which is often how the rest of the world looks at things, right? But it does so much for the hobby. It lays a foundation that everyone can stand on and say, okay, well, we've reached another level, and now we don't have to reset below that. We have a new mark that we can progress from that point on. And I think it's important. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think it's important to recognize that these things, even though our hobby is relatively small, people on the outside are still looking at the things that we're doing and looking at how are we dealing with this, and they're recognizing that we were able to move past some of those issues that other hobbies are still struggling with on a more basic levels than we are today.
And the one thing is that what Isaac said about the whole Frosthaven thing, he said just, amongst a lot of things, he said it was right to do the right thing. He said the same thing. He said we just, we have to do the right thing.
Right.
And that's all you got to do. Just that's it. And I got to push back on your one thing. This is not a small hobby no more. This thing is growing. This hobby is not going to be niche too much longer. It's moving into the mainstream and everywhere else. So it's growing. It is growing. Now, when I see all those games in Target and a few in Walmart, things are changing. Things are changing.
And that's what I think is so wonderful, is that it's no longer something that people look at. It used to be people would talk about board games as something that you did when you were a kid, or how it was somehow a primitive hobby, right? Where it's like, okay, you play board games, as if that was a lesser hobby than anything else. And it gets more and more mainstream attention. It gets more attention again by companies and in areas of society that actually has a platform. Same thing. You've had different TV shows that have featured people playing board games. You have, again, Target and Walmart and other places. It's great. The hobby is definitely, we're in a transition period, and I think all the things that especially the things that we're talking about today, is going to determine what that future looks like.
It does.
If we do it right,
that's true.
There's a bright future ahead of us, and there's so much potential, because more and more people will then look at the hobby and say, well, I have felt alienated, I have felt not welcome in other hobbies. What about this growing board game hobby? Am I going to be welcome there? And it's important that we now do everything that we can to show that, yes, we're not perfect. We still struggle with things. But we're trying, and we the goal is there, and that we're showing that we're united in where we want things to be.
Exactly.
That is true. That is exactly
so
right.
True.
That is right.
That is so
right.
true.
That is right.
Let's spend the last couple of minutes and just talk about the future a little bit. Talk about both what you have going on with OFPG Voices, as well as just some of the exciting things that you see ahead in general when we're talking about diversity and inclusion and representation in board games, and some of the challenges as well, because there are certainly challenges on the road ahead.
I guess for us, we just want to continue to grow OFPG voices, get more content creators, make the show better. Right now, we're still with episode 4, so we're still figuring out how we want the format to be going forward. So I do see the show changing and improving, bringing on more people, doing more exciting things with it. Don't know where it is yet. We haven't figured it out, but we're working on it. And then with our own channel, just continue to put out the message that we always do about the games we love and talk about games and trying to make this hobby a better place for everybody.
Yeah, just going and just we still have the challenges of why are these black folk telling me about how to play games, and we have those biases that hit us, but we're gonna keep going past that and say, hey, we love this hobby and we love playing games, and we can talk too. And we're so glad that we have our OFPG family out there supporting us, because we love all of them. And if y'all out there now, we love y'all. We love y'all.
So the good thing we found is for every negative comment we get, we're going to get about 10 to 15 positive ones.
That's right.
Sometimes maybe 20 positive, depends on what the video is. So if we get one negative, you're going to have at least 10 to 20 positives to wash that one away. So we don't let it bother us. We just keep moving.
Yeah, we keep moving. We keep moving.
And I think that's a great message in general, is that there's no, it's a waste of time and effort to try to fight against that negativity, try to convince them otherwise. Just do good. Just do good, do positive things, and eventually those voices are going to drown out.
Yes.
If we just keep on going and we show that there's so much positivity, there's so much goodness that comes out of this, anything else that would want to fight against it, it's just like even in other areas, and it's been evident the last year and a half to 2 years during the pandemic. There were publishers that were certainly stuck in very outdated thinking, and I'm not talking about just issues of diversity and inclusion and such, but just in general, right? And where have they gone now? Well, they couldn't survive the fact that we had the pandemic. They were not prepared for that. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because we needed to move past those things. We needed to progress. And I think it's the same thing that we will hopefully see in this regard, right? Is that anyone who's still stubborn, they will be there for a while. There's nothing we can do to directly convince them to change their mind. But at some point, those voices will be gone, because we will work past it. We will continue to do good. We will continue to build a strong community and show that this is improving the hobby. And then anyone who didn't want to see that change, well, they will then be left behind because of it.
Exactly.
But again, that's a good thing. There will be way more positive things that will come out of growing the hobby, rather than trying to maintain a status quo that is not what anyone wants anyway.
And the one thing that I do want to see in the future is that we still need those themes and stories to be told in board games. We've been in the dungeons long enough. We can come out the dungeons now, and we have had enough zombies to fill a warehouse of 15,000 warehouses. We had enough zombies. So let's talk about some stories that people of color have been begging to say, and put those on a board game as great themes. We can do that. I mean, there's tons of them out there. So let's do that.
Actually tell a story about people of color from a modern perspective. We don't have to go back to ancient Africa.
No, we don't.
Or ancient China.
No, we don't.
There's so many modern stories we could bring out that we could share.
Yes, that is so true. That is so true.
Yeah, I was positively surprised recently. I participate in the judging for a few design awards, and I was positively surprised to see that there were a few games that were delving not very deep, but at least loosely on other parts of the world. There was one that was talking about in a way that it would normally be set in Europe or in some Japanese or Chinese empires or something, but they dealt with empires in Africa. And I just thought that was so refreshing that someone just said, well, I don't need to be stuck in this same area. I don't need to retell that same story. I can go somewhere else. Now they hadn't, it was clear that they had not done a thorough and really deep research. This was a very surface level thing, but it was still a positive change.
Yeah.
Because this was still a change in venue, and it was still just a different way of looking at it. And again, anything that is a good first step, that's at least a step in the right direction. Then we can work on polishing that and improving it.
That's true. That's true. That's what we really want to see, those themes and stories come out. Definitely want to see that.
Yeah. Well, I am really grateful to you for everything that you do, for everything that you stand for, and all the positivity that you bring to the hobby, not just for people of color or other people that are marginalized, but the good things that you bring to the hobby for all of us. You just want
Thank you so much.
the hobby to be better, and it's definitely something where the things that you do and the things that you stand for are headed in. It's taking our hobby in the right direction, and really thank you for all of that you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And also want to just thank everyone again who has been here. Thank you for the positive vibes and thoughts and feelings. We really appreciate this. Again, it was like you guys were saying too, your OFPG family and such. It matters. It matters that people are banding together for things that are good and so forth. And eventually we will keep moving that needle a little bit, and we will work towards just positive change. And it's being noticed. I think that's the part that you said that is a good thing to hold on to, is that this is not for naught. It's we're making a difference. We're progressing things, and it's getting better, and it's good to hang on to that positivity, right? So
yes, and with allies like Board&Dice, that it only makes it better. That you guys see the effort that needs to be made, and you're right along with the journey with us, and we love that. We love that. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's for us. This has been. It has been a positive journey for us. It's not been. I'm not going to say that it hasn't involved learning and changing things. Not because we haven't ever been against any of this. We just didn't know what we didn't know. We've had to educate ourselves and just learn to think in different ways. But the good thing is that it's once you've done that, you don't have to. This is not an ongoing rewiring. It's just you change one thing, and now it's as natural as everything else that you do. And it's if there's any, especially if there's any publisher out there who feels like, oh, this is going to take so much effort and money and time or whatever, it will initially, because you're changing what you're doing. You're learning a new skill. But once you've done that, it's not hard. You just keep doing it, because it becomes a habit, and it becomes a good habit. It's not hard to work with consultants. No. You just do it. And you do that just like you would work with an artist or whatever. So
yes, that is so true. But it was good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you for
absolutely.
Thank you.
And to all of you that have been here watching, I highly encourage you to tune in tomorrow as well. We're going to have a slightly different discussion, although it's all on the same overall topic. But tomorrow there will be a discussion. We will have Matthew McCack, Benita will be here, Stella from Maple University will be here, talking about representation in board games. Again, a very important topic. And in the end, it's about the positivity of it, right? This is not a negative topic. This is a positive topic, and that's what we're trying to make sure that everyone feels. So, Thank you again, Mik and Starla. It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. Now, please tell everyone where they can find you.
Starla?
Well, if you're looking for Our Family Plays Games, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course on YouTube.
That's right. That's right. We're all on the social webs, y'all. All on the social media webs. Yes. Come find us. And make sure you subscribe and join us on our journey at our YouTube channel.
That's right.
Yes.
And if they are local...
If you're local, I'm sorry.
Look at them. Look at them. Look at them.
If you are in Omaha, Nebraska, you can find us on Cox Channel 22, Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. and Tuesdays at 4:30 p.m.
Look at them, y'all. That's family right there, y'all. That's family. That's family. He know what's up. He know what's up.
Cox now for a full year, and we're going to continue to stay on cable for as long as they'll let us.
As long as they'll let us.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again, and thank you to all of you that have been here watching. We're going to take another quick break, and then we will be back at the top of the hour with a live play of Nightmare Cathedral, so you don't want to miss that. Thank you again, Mik and Starla, and we will talk to you guys later.
Love y'all now. Love y'all. All right.